This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, in yesterday's session, um, those who have attended yesterday's session, it was just a demo wherein we discussed about what is performance testing and why load runner and its architecture, uh, and how to record a simple flow, and we replayed it and understood the very high level uh, results, or what we call as response time. And then we have gone through the course content, and also discussed some question answers as well. So this was a generic definition um, that I have noted down. So performance testing is all about checking the performance of an application by applying some load. Load means nothing but the number of users or the volume. Okay. So again, for those who haven't attended, I just gave a couple of examples for understanding what is performance testing. So one such example was uh, like if you take an example of a lift or an escalator, wherein you board the lift and press 3, that means the lift should go to third floor, right? If you are alone and if you press 3 and if it is going to third floor in, like, let's say 2 or 3 seconds, or let's say 5 seconds, uh, if all 10 people, let's say the lift capacity is 10 people, if all 10 people are on board, and if you press 3, how much time it is taking to go to third floor is important for us. So if if only one person is on board, then we don't call it as performance testing, because the performance will be analyzed with maximum load applied on it. Okay, so same is the case for any software application. So if you have any application, if only one or two users are using that application, and if you want to analyze the performance, it doesn't make sense. So for that, you need to verify the performance of an application by applying some load. Load could be the volume, that means the number of users, like 200, 300, 500, 1000. Okay, so the maximum load, the number of users, will be shared or given as input by client. Okay, and considering that as an input, we actually run our performance tests and analyze the results. So how to do that practically and all, we'll see later in our upcoming sessions. But hope all of you understood the basic definition of performance testing. Okay. Now, in today's session, we will be discussing about types of performance testing. I do have a separate slide for this, wherein I have clearly mentioned about the types of performance testing and everything. But for now, I just want to um, go through this notepad, by writing down some notes, running notes, so that everyone will understand clearly. And those slides I can share anyways. I'll be sharing those slides later. Okay. Now, now, because we understood the definition of performance testing, let's try to understand the different types of performance testing. The first one is load testing. Okay, first I'll list down all of them and we'll discuss all of them separately, and then you will understand why we need to do all of these or some of these in your projects. Okay, the third one is endurance test, or you can also call it as soak, or you can also call it as duration test also. Okay, then you have a scalability test. Uh, then you can have a volume test, which is not that important, but that's fine. Then you have something called failover test. Okay, so these are pretty much, I mean, you have spike test also. Okay, so this, we will discuss all of these today except this one, because to understand this failover test, you need to understand some key terms called what is a server, what is application server, what is database server, what is web server, what is a protocol, like what is so those terms like related to servers we need to understand. So those topics related to server, application server, database server, web server and all, we will be discussing tomorrow. And once we are done with understanding those topics, tomorrow at the end of the session, I will be explaining you this failover test as well. Okay. But now we will be discussing other types of tests except this failover test. Okay. Um, now, any questions still here before I start discussing what is load test? Any of you have any questions? So all good with what is performance testing, right? So you will get more clarity about these different types of performance testing in next few minutes. So the first one is load testing. So load test basically is the first major type of test that we execute in any project. Okay. So before understanding further, I would like to add one more point here. In general, performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. Okay. So performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. Uh, these three terms I will be using, uh, in some of these types of testing now, and then you'll get more clarity. So this load test is the first major type of test that we do in any project. So you are assigned to some performance testing project. Now you have to do the performance testing for your application. So where or which type of test you will run first? So the first type of test, major type of test that you run is load testing. Okay. So load test is all about checking the speed of the application. Okay. So by applying load, by applying load, expected load. So what do you mean by checking the speed of the application? Checking the speed of the application means how fast the pages are loading, how fast your application is responding, how fast the user is able to navigate from one page to another page. Okay. See, I click a link. Okay. And I have to navigate to another page. So how much time it is taking for the user to navigate from one page to another page? So that time, that speed, okay, is important. So the very first important major test that we perform is load test, wherein we verify the speed of the application by applying expected load. What do you mean by load? Load is nothing but number of users. Like for example, 500 users or 1000 users, like that. Now, who will give you this number? Can anyone tell who will give you this number?
Business team.
Application development team.
Your application development team can also give you uh, by getting those details from client, or basically the business team will give you these details, or maybe client can also give you these details, but more likely it will be the business team uh, working along with development team. They together they can provide these details to us. Okay. You can reach out to business analyst also. They can also assist us in case your team has a separate business analyst. They can also provide you some input on that. Okay. Now, when I say load test, for how long this test will run? Okay, I will run the test with these many users. That's fine. But for how long? So this test will run for 1 hour of steady state. I will I will explain you what is steady state later. But as of now, just understand that this test will run for 1 hour with this number of users. That means when all 500 users are active, then we will run the test for 1 hour. Okay. So in general, what happened? Okay, I'll give you one more additional point on this. So when I say 500, if I start a test, all these 500 users will not perform the actions at a time. Okay, I mean, they won't start at a time. See, slowly the users will increase. They will gradually increase, something like this. Let's say few users will start, and then after few seconds, another few users will start. After few seconds, another few users will add. After few seconds, another few users will start, like that. And after that, when all the users are up and running here, let's say till here 500 users are up. Okay, let's say here 100, 200, 300, 400, and let's say 500 here. So when 500 users are up and running, then we actually run for 1 hour. Okay, and then after that, how they gradually increased, similarly they will gradually decrease, like this. Okay, now this is called steady state. Whatever the time you have it here, this 1 hour is called steady state. Why? Because during this 1 hour only, 500 all the users are active and performing. Okay, here the users are gradually increasing, here the users are gradually decreasing. Basically this is called ramp up, ramp space up, ramp up. This is called ramp down. Okay, ramp up means gradually increasing the load, ramp down means gradually decreasing the load. This in between, whatever the exact 1 hour we are going to use, that is called steady state. That is called steady state. Okay, so everyone understood? So load test is the first major type of test that we execute to check the speed of the application by applying some load, expected load. So load is nothing but number of users. Okay, who is giving you that users? Client will be giving that users, or business team will be giving that users. This test will run for 1 hour, and in this test we are going to verify response times, because because I clearly said, right, it's all about checking the speed in sense response times. Yesterday I told you what do you mean by response time. So when a request goes to server, when the server will process it and sends the response back, right? So the total amount of time taken for this to and fro is called response time. We'll see that practically later also, but for time being, just understand theoretically that we are going to find the response time. That means how much time it is going to take if you click a button or if you click a link and all that stuff. At the same time, we also look for any server related issues like memory issues. Okay, CPU issues. Okay, or any slow coding issues, slow code running issues. Okay, slow SQL query running issues, etc. Okay, so we are going to look, whenever you run any type of test, in fact we are going to look for all these things. Okay, so any questions in this type of test? Did you guys understand, at least theoretically, what this test is all about and what exactly we are going to verify? No, because this,
Sir,
yeah, go ahead.
this 500 users, these are the concurrent users.
Yes, these are concurrent users, correct.
Sir,
Concurrent users
then
in sense,
what is simultaneous users?
that okay, I will explain that concept day after tomorrow in detail
Okay.
with a graph. But at least because you asked me concurrent users, I'll tell you one simple definition. So concurrent users are the users who are actively working on that application. Okay, see, there is a bank application. Now in bank application, let's say 500 users are actively uh, uh, doing the performance test. So do you mean all these 500 users are just testing some specific functionality like transfer money? No. Banking application, let's say, might have different functionalities like transfer money, download statements, paying credit card bill, etc. Now, out of these 500 users, 100 users might be downloading bank statements, okay, during that time period. Another 200 users might be transferring money. Another 100 users might be downloading paying credit card bill. So these users are performing various tasks, okay, but they are applying load on the application. All these users are applying load on the application, right? But they are performing various tasks. These users are called concurrent users. Okay. Now I will tell you the difference with example in our day after tomorrow session. But hope you understood what do you mean by concurrent users.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when I say this is the first major type of test that we run in every project, that means if this test is a failure, okay, when you run a test, you have to tell whether what went right, what went wrong, whether the test is a successful test or if is it a failed test, right? Now, what if this is a failed test? If this is a failed test, then there is no point in running other types of tests. So in order for you to run different types of tests, which are mentioned over here, this test should be a successful test. Okay. Now, how do you determine which test is whether the test is a successful test or a failed test? Basically, it is determined based on uh, multiple factors, like what is the okay. So I'll add that point here just for your you just for your understanding. How do you determine if a test is a failed test? Okay, so failed test, sorry. So failed test where failed transactions or steps that I executed are more than 2 to 3%. Okay. Now you executed like yesterday in yesterday's session, I told you in transfer money, you have different steps, sequential steps or transactions like launch the application, log into the application, navigate to savings account, select a beneficiary, and so on, right? So those are transactions and steps. So in the entire load test, 1 hour load test, you might end up, let's say, uh, you might end up, let's say, executing 10,000 transactions. Now, if the test has to be a failed test, let's say, out of 10,000, what is 2 to 3%? Let's take 3%. What is 3% of 10,000? What is 3% of 10,000? 300, right? So 300, if the failed transactions or steps are more than 300, then it's a failed test. Okay. That is one point. I'll tell you clearly, practically later on, but just for your understanding, I'm adding this point. Actually, this point was not supposed to be covered now, but because I told you what if this test is failed, so I'm mentioning these points here. So this is one thing where response times are very high. So when you get a very high response times, obviously it's a failed test, right? So let's take a transfer money scenario. For you to transfer money, if it is taking, let's say, 20 seconds or 1 minute or 2 minutes, it's very high, right? Ideally, what is the industry standard that we discussed yesterday? How much time it should take maximum as per the industry standard?
2 seconds.
2 seconds, maximum 2 seconds, right? If let's say if transfer money is taking 1 minute or 30 seconds, right? It's a very high response time. Obviously, it's a kind of failed test, right? So there are some factors like this. We'll discuss further later on. But for your understanding, okay, let's consider these factors for now. Now, if this is a successful test, then obviously we'll proceed and look for other types of tests. Okay. Now let's try to understand stress test. Okay. Now, what do you mean by stress test? The name itself is self-explanatory, that you are going to apply some stress on the application. How much amount of stress? More than this value. That means whatever the volume or the load that you applied during the load test, anything more than that can be a stress test. Okay. So any load applied on the application which is more than load test volume, then it can be a stress test. Now, for example, in above load test, 500 users was volume, right? Then stress test load can be 600 or 700 or 800 or 900, or to an extent where the system breaks. System breaks in sense the application breaks. Okay, or to an extent where we find the breaking point. You can write like that also, or to an extent where we find the breaking point. Okay, now I'll tell you one example. Let's say there is a restaurant. Okay, there is a restaurant. There is one helper whose job is to take the orders from the customers and deliver the food onto the table. Okay, let's say there are 5 tables. There is one helper, there are 5 tables. That helper is actually taking orders from all these 5 tables and delivering the food. Now, due to increase in demand, the owner of the restaurant decided to increase the number of tables from 5 to 7. Owner decided to increase the number of tables from 5 to 7. Now, this helper is now handling 7 tables, taking orders and delivering food. Again, there is a huge demand. The owner decided to increase the number of tables from 7 to 9. Now, this helper is still able to manage, but the amount of time taken to deliver the food is increasing. For example, with 5 or 7 tables, the helper was able to manage to take the order and deliver the food in 20 minutes. Okay. Now, with increase in the number of tables to 9, the helper is now able to manage or deliver the food in, let's say, 40 minutes. Because one helper, cannot do more work, right? Now, again, there is a huge demand. The owner of the restaurant decided to increase the number of tables from 9 to 11. Then at this point, the helper decided that it is not possible to support, and the helper quit the job. Said, no, that's the max. I cannot do. I cannot do. The owner of the restaurant applied a lot of stress on that helper, that the helper couldn't manage. And what was the breaking point here in this example? The max the helper could assist was only 9 tables, and that too with lot of delay. That too with lot of delay in sense performance delay, right? Earlier, earlier all the tables were handled in 25 minutes. Now it is taking up to 40 minutes, right? There's a delay, right? So that means the breaking point is maximum 9 tables, that too with some performance issues. Without any performance issues, the maximum stress, the maximum breaking point is only 7 tables for that example. In software also, in any software application also, if you keep on increasing the number of users, at some point of time, the application will break. The server will not be able to withstand the load. Okay, the application will not be able to withstand the amount of load that you are applying. More amount of load, okay, more stress, more chances of breaking. right? So for how long we run this? Again, we can run this for 1 hour and check, no problem. What are we going to verify? Again, all of these we are going to verify. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Okay, we are going to verify all of this. Okay, any questions in this? Did everyone understand this example?
Sir, the breaking point, the means the what error the server will give.
So, okay, so the server, see, when the server is in a position not which is not able to handle the load, the server will either restart or crash. Okay, in that case you might end up seeing 502, which is when the server is restarting or crashed, the request will not reach to that server. In that case you might see a bad gateway timeout, also bad gateway timeout 502. Okay, you might in that process you might see sometimes 500, 502, all those server side errors you can see.
Okay.
Okay, I'll tell you those in upcoming sessions, because once we discuss what is a server and all that stuff, then we'll understand what are these server side errors also.
Sometimes the response is not coming at all, means it is getting stuck. So that is also considered as some breaking point.
No, see, it depends. When you are sending a request to server, the server is not sending the response back. The issue can be related to the application. Issue can be related to the network also. Sometimes if there is any network issues, any connection issues between the client and server, then also the issue might come up. Or if there is any issue within the server, you can find out. Okay, so that's the reason have we are using these application monitoring tools like AppDynamics or Dynatrace. Okay, or in fact any other APM tool to find out what exactly is the root cause in those
Mm.
scenarios.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, then the third one is endurance test or soak test or duration test. See, this type of test, uh, one second. Okay, so this type of test, endurance test, we also call it as soak test, or we can also call it as duration test. In some projects they call endurance, in some projects they call soak, in some projects they call duration. Okay, but the meaning is same. Now what exactly we are going to test here? Here if you scroll up, I have used the term performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability and scalability. Speed I have already mentioned here. So in this endurance test, we actually focus on the stability. So so this is all about checking the stability of the application by running the test for longer duration, like 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, 1 day, etc. Okay, now the main purpose of this test is to check the stability of the application by running the test for longer duration. So what do you mean by this? So if I run the test for 5 hours, let's say I want to run the test for 5 hours, I want to see how the application is responding in the first 1 hour, in the second 1 hour, in the third 1 hour, in the fourth 1 hour, and the last 1 hour. So my expectation is the application should respond equally during the entire 5 hours of test. In the first 1 hour, if it is responding very fast, okay, in the first 1 hour, if it is responding in the first 1 hour, if it is responding very fast, okay, in the second, in the second, it is not, in the second 1 hour also it's good, in the third 1 hour also it's good, in the fourth 1 hour maybe it is very slow. okay, then that's an issue. That means it is not stable. So the application is not stable enough when you're running the test for longer duration. That means in real time also, the application might end up facing similar issues. If you continuously access the application for longer duration, that can happen. Okay. So what the main thing is, how the application is responding in the first 1 hour, it should perform the same in all the remaining hours as well. Okay. Now, the thing is, okay, we clearly know that this test will run for more than 1 hour. That is for sure. Now, how many hours it will run? 3 hours or 5 hours or 8 hours? It depends on project to project. Some projects they will run for 5 hours. Some projects they'll run for 8 hours like that. Okay. Rarely they will run it for 1 day, 2 days also. But if you ask me, sir, when did you run a test for 1 day? In the last 5-6 years at least, I don't even remember I running any test for 1 day. The max I ran is for 8 hours. The least I ran is for 3 hours. Okay. Now, with how many users we have to run this test? Okay. Again, in in some projects, in some projects, we use same load or same volume as load test. So in load test we ran with 500 users. Here also we run with 500 users. Okay. In other projects, in some other projects, we use 75% of the volume from load test. That means in load test, if you run with 500 users, 75% is 350. That means in this test, we run with 350. Now check what they are following in your team. Okay, out of these two, you can also continue to use the same. If you are the one who is supposed to decide, then you can go with this option. No problem. No problem in running with the same volume as load test. Okay. Now, what are we exactly going to verify here? Same thing. We are going to verify all the important things like response times, memory issues, CPU issues, slow code issues, okay, long SQL running query issues, and all such stuff. Now, memory issues is I want to highlight these memory issues especially in this type of test because the probability of getting these memory issues in this type of test is high. Okay, I will tell you why and all later on because I mean I added that in the slide, but I don't want to discuss that now because it will be too much, you know, maybe little complex to understand at this point of time because we are in the day one of session, right? That's the reason. So I'll tell you later on why there are chances of getting memory issues in this type of test later on for sure. Okay. Any questions in this type of test?
Actually, we do not use this kind of test cases, right? This is what you mean to say. Like,
What do you mean by we do not use these type of test cases?
we don't do this kind of testing when we are doing performance testing. It is just to make sure for understanding, right?
Uh, no. So it depends on project to project, but
Okay.
at least 50. Let's say if there are 100 projects running across everywhere, out of 100, I can confidently say that at least 60 to 70% of the projects will run this. Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
So can you reiterate the things which you had told us last before I asked the question? You said that you had added it the slide to just to show it here, right? So
no,
okay.
no. Yeah. No. I actually in the slide I explained it. I mean, I mentioned all the points clearly why the chances of getting memory issues are high in this type of test. But
Okay.
I don't want to explain that in detail now because it will be little complex to understand the terms like heap memory, non-heap
Mhm.
memory, and all. That's the reason. I will explain you this. In our course content, we have one session for heap dumps and thread dumps. At that point of time, I'll tell you clearly why we might get this. And also in our course content, we will be discussing something related to garbage collection. So at that point of time, I'll tell you again why there are chances of getting memory issues, especially in this type of test. Okay. I mean,
Okay,
I'm not
so
denying. I'm not
fine,
denying
fine,
that
fine.
you won't get these issues in other type of test, but the chances are more in this type of test.
I understood, but when we are doing an endurance test, these are the key things that we have to know it, right? We have to
Yes,
know. If we get
yes.
the memory issues, the system will get crashed, or the script which we have written is crashed, or will get failed. This is what you mean to say at the end of the endurance test, right?
Okay, yeah. So
Or
once you
will it
get
get
memory
passes?
issues, yeah.
Mhm.
So once you get
Mm.
memory issues, the server will restart automatically. Especially in the cloud architecture. So where
Mm.
let's say, I mean, most of the applications are hosted on cloud nowadays. So all your application servers are on cloud. Okay. So those servers, if they get memory issues in sense, every server will be allocated with some amount of memory, and if that
Yeah.
like 4 GB of RAM or 8 GB of RAM, something like that, again, if that memory is reaching 100%, okay,
Mm.
then the server will automatically restart in the cloud
Okay.
architecture. Okay, the restart will take like few seconds only. It will not take too much time also nowadays. It will hardly take few seconds to restart, but in those few seconds only we might lose some amount of data for sure. Okay,
Okay.
because yeah, because there will be some loss of data, of course. If the other servers are up and running, if only one server instance is down, other server instance are up and running, that's a different case. But I'll explain you tomorrow what is web server, app server and all, right? So maybe we can get more idea on this tomorrow.
Okay,
And
but
then
actually, you mean to say like for 3 hours, if you run, it might not get the issues of the memory or CPU issues. It may run the test case and it may pass, right?
yeah, it
If
may
it is more than 3 to 8 hours, it may get fail or might not, right? That is
no, no,
what
no.
you mean to say.
I'm not saying like that. I'm saying that in the endurance test,
Mm,
we are actually checking the stability. Stability in
okay,
sense the in the entire duration, either it could be 3 hours or 5 hours or 8 hours, whatever the time you run, whatever the time
mm,
period you run, the performance of the application should be same, stable. It should not deviate. Okay. For
okay,
example, I am launching the application. In the first 1 hour for launching the application, if it is taking 1.5 seconds to launch the application,
okay,
in the second hour of the test also, it should take only 1.5 seconds.
yes.
Okay, it cannot take 4 seconds or 5 seconds in the second 1 hour, because the URL is
Mm-hmm,
same. We are launching the
mm,
same application. Why should it take
mm,
more time? That means there is some
yes.
performance issue. That means there is
Mm,
no stability in the long run. Okay,
okay,
so those kind of issues we are going to find out in these type of tests.
okay,
Actually, I can give one good example who is asking these questions. So let's assume
yes,
you are running with the 10 kilometers per hour. Okay. So you started running today morning at 6 a.m. and you are running till like continuously for 10 hours. So the speed what you started, it should be the same at the end also. If the speed is decreased, that means some issue in the application.
yes, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this is the third, and again, this one is again important type of test. Okay, and next one is the scalability test. Basically, the scalability test, uh, we run this type of test considering the future growth. Okay, so what do you mean by future growth? So for example, I will tell you one real time example. In 2020, we all know about the pandemic, right? So in 2020, in the month of May, in the month of May, I guess, I was supporting for one of the banking client at that time. So, and we as a team were supporting for almost like 20 applications, 20 projects or 20 applications. Okay. Now the client called us on that particular one day in the month of May 2020. Client said that due to increase in demand for the online applications, okay, that means people were not going to banks directly at that point of time, right? So most of them wanted to use the online services. So the demand for online services increased drastically at that time. So the number of people accessing the bank applications also increased a lot. That means the load was much more than expected. So what client mentioned is, okay, this trend looks like the trend might be continuing. The trend might be continuing. The increase in demand for online services will be huge in the next 2 to 3 months. So can you check? Okay, so the demand will be more. The demand can be up to 400%. The demand can reach up to 400%. Okay, so client asked us to check if the applications are able to withstand that 400% load. What do you mean by that? For example, if I write 100% load test, if I mention 100% load test, that means whatever the load test that I executed with how many users, that will be my 100% load test. That will be my 100% load test. Now, if client is saying that the demand can go up to 400% due to pandemic in the next 3 months, can you check if our applications are able to withstand the 400% load? That means 200% load is 200% load will be 1000 users. 300% load will be 1500 users. Let's say 400% load will be 2000 users. Now we already tested this. We already tested this. This looks good for all the applications. Now because of increase in demand, client asked us to check whether the applications will be able to withstand 400% load or not. Now what should we do? Can anyone tell?
We'll test with the 2000 users.
Any other answer?
I think we may go in sequence. Like we already executed with 500 users, right? So then next test will be 1000. Then another test with 1500. Another test with 2000, like that.
Yes. So we cannot directly run this test because if this test is a failure, we cannot determine or inform client, okay, whether it will be able to handle this or this also. Okay, we cannot determine if it is handle if it will be able to handle 200% or 300% at least. That's the reason what we do. Once this is a successful test, we run this, and if this is successful test, we run this. If this is successful test, we run this. Okay, and at that point of time, out of 20 applications, around 13 to 14 applications were able to withstand this amount of load. Only 6 to 7 applications were not able to handle. Okay, then what we have done at that point of time is, because we don't have time, right? It was everything was everything was supposed to be implemented quickly because of the huge demand. So what they did is they just increased the capacity of all the servers. Like if the RAM is like 16 GB, they upgraded to 32 GB. If they upgraded the processors if required, like that. So once you increase the capacity of the servers, okay, then automatically 99.99% of the cases the applications will be able to withstand the load, unless you have a serious performance issues in coding, okay, bad coding which resulted in performance issues. Even sometimes the server capacity might not help. Okay, but 99% of the cases when you increase the server capacity, most of the performance issues will be resolved automatically. Okay, so that means a scalability test will be done considering the future growth. So now let's say a client came to us and said, hey, in the next 6 months, my business might grow by 50%. My business might grow by 50% in the next 6 months. So currently, if you're running with 500 users, in next 6 months, client is expecting 750 users load. So now itself, keeping the future growth in mind, now itself, we will run for 750 users and inform the client that this is how your application is behaving with 750 users. Everyone understood? Okay. So this scalability test might be somewhere uh, minimally related to this stress test also, because here also we are increasing the load, here also I'm increasing the load, but here on some specification based on client input, based on the future growth, based on demand, like keeping that into consideration, we'll run the scalability test. Okay, now in every project we don't run the scalability test and stress test at a time. We run either this or this. Okay, we don't run both at a time. No use in running both at a time. Either this or that is sufficient. Okay, any questions?
No, actually, both relates to same, right? Stress is nothing but increasing the load, so application will get stressed, right?
Yes, but
Likewise, the scalability also, we are increasing the load, with amount, like concurrent amount of the load we are using it, or increasing in the load. We call it as a scalability test. You mean
yeah,
to say?
scalability in sense like client will tell us like, hey, my business might grow like this much amount in the next 1 year. Can you check now itself whether our application will be able to withstand the load? So we don't want to wait for one more year or 6 months and see how it goes. We just want to check now itself. Okay, so we might not test up to breaking point also here. Okay, but in stress test sometimes we test up to breaking point depending on the client input. Okay, that's the reason these two tests we will not perform at the same time. Most of that, because in both the cases we are applying little more load than the load test. uh, Considering that, we don't run both of these tests at the same time. Okay, I mean, most of the times this will be sufficient. No need to run stress test also. Majority of the projects this will be sufficient. Okay, now if your client is not aware of performance testing, okay, your client will say, hey, I don't know anything about performance testing, you only decide what are the different types of tests you want to run. Then I will consider this important statement that performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. Okay, so speed is referring to load test, stability is referring to endurance test, scalability is referring to scalability test. So I will suggest these three types of tests, okay, to the client, and I will continue to run these three types of tests. Okay, so you can always mention this point to client. Now, the next type of test is volume test. So in this type of test, again, this is similar to load test. I'll just write this in a simple lines. Similar to load test, except that huge data will be inserted into database, okay, for checking the performance. Okay, so this is similar to load test. When I say similar to load test, everything is same. You run with 500 users, you run for 1 hour, you verify response times, you verify all these metrics as well. Now, what is difference? What is different? One point. The one important point that is differentiating a load test and a volume test is, in volume test, there will be huge amount of data that will be inserted into database for checking the performance. How and why? See, every application, the data keeps on increasing day by day, right? The data will not remain same. Today you have 1 lakh records in your application database in production. After 1 year, you might have like 5 lakhs or 4 lakh records in database. Okay, or after 6 months, you will have like 5 lakhs records of database. Okay, let's say you started a new college. Okay, this is the first year of college. You started your own college. You have your entire team, administration, faculty, transport, security, students, departments, everything. So where will you store all this information? In the college database, right? So you will have all the information related to the first year students, faculty, security, transport, different courses available, fees paid, etc. Now students keep on increasing every year, right? When students keep on increasing every year, okay, data will increase in the database, right? Students increased, security increased, faculty increased, everything increases, right? That means the data will also increase. Now, keeping that sort of scenario in mind, what we will do is we will intentionally ask the database administration team to inject or insert some huge amount of data into database, like 1 lakh records or 2 lakh records into database, and then run this test. Okay, so when there is a huge data in the database, there are more chances of getting some database issues like long running SQL queries or slow performing SQL queries, okay, or some deadlock issues, okay, something like that. So specifically targeting the performance of a database, this type of test will be executed. Okay, so what you have to do, or what is the only thing that you have to do? You have to work with the database administration team and the development team to insert some huge amount of data into database, okay, and then run the test. When there's a huge data, you will see some performance issues. See, you have a phone, you bought a new phone, you open photos, you scroll down. Let's say you bought a phone like 15 days ago, you took like 500 photos, you open photos, you scroll down, it will scroll down quickly, you see all the photos in a second. You bought the phone 3 years ago, you have some thousands and thousands of photos, 1 lakh photos in your phone, and you open photos, you scroll down, it will load slowly. Why? Because the data is more. When the data is more, the processing time is taking more. Clear? So this test we will not run until someone is asking us to do. Otherwise, we will not at all run this test. If you ask me when did you run this type of test recently, I don't even remember. But this is one kind of test that you have. Any questions? You understood the difference? So when you have a huge amount of data in your application database, the database might respond slow. The queries might run slowly. You might see some performance issues in database. Okay, so so all the performance issues will not only come from the application code or front end browsers. No, most of the issues will always come from database only. Okay, majority of the performance issues will always come from the application server and database server. Database server in sense Oracle, SQL Server, whatever your project is working on. Understood, everyone?
Then this has to be priority, right? To do the volume test.
This
Considering
has to
that
be the
we
this has to be the priority. But the thing is, what we do in load test is why we don't run this load test is why we don't run volume test is
volume.
in the load test itself. What we try to do is whatever the current database records or database volume is there in production as of now, those many records or that exact data we will ask the database administration team to clone into stress database. See, I'll tell you here. So here you have a production database, okay, and you have a stress database. Stress database instance, the environment where you run the stress test. Production is where the real users are accessing the application. So in production database, let's say you have 100,000 records or 1 lakh records. Okay. What we do is we ask the DBA to copy or clone the same data into our stress database also. Okay. And then run the load test. This point also you can add it. So whatever the data you have it in production, same data you have to clone it or copy into stress database and then run the test, because in real time these are the number of records the production database will definitely have. So keeping that in mind, you can also have the same number of records in stress database, stress environment database, and then run the load test and see the performance. Now, when your database records are matching with the production, then it is good enough to call this load test as a successful test. No need to increase the volume here. In this case, what we are doing in the volume test, the same thing. In the volume, we are, instead of 1, we are actually running for 3 or 4 lakh records here. That's it. There is no requirement. We intentionally increasing or adding huge amount of data. Okay. And then checking how it is performing. But in any normal performance testing project, we always compare or keep the data in sync with production only. We don't keep more than production. We keep in sync with production. If there is any specific requirement, specifically asking what if my record number of records are 3 lakh, how it will perform, can you let me know? In that case, we will add more amount of data by working with DBA team. Okay. Any questions? This type of test we don't run. Again, that's the reason I'm telling. I've been working on these performance testing projects for many years, right? So this type of test we don't run unless the requirement is
Yes.
coming from the higher management, but that won't happen. If you ask me when did you run, I don't even remember.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Now, sixth type of test, actually, this failover test I will explain tomorrow with the help of some diagram, because we need to discuss all the terms like what is application server, web server, and all that stuff. But for time being, I'll just tell you at a high level what is spike test. So spike test, again, we don't run every time. If there is any requirement, we run. Basically, this is a type of performance testing wherein we we simulate a scenario where the application should receive a sudden or extreme increase or decrease in the load, a sudden increase and a sudden decrease. Okay, so you increase the load suddenly like this. Okay, now in the first example I told you, I will gradually increase the load like this. Agree? No, in this spike test, I don't gradually increase like this. I suddenly increase like this and see how the application is handling. Okay, and I wait for a few minutes and I suddenly decrease. So when you suddenly increase the load and suddenly decrease the load, how the application is responding, we will verify. Okay, so that's the only important point as part of spike test. We don't run this type of test every time. Okay, so we will work with developer. The developer will also be on call. Okay, and developer will say, okay, just increase the load. I'll see how it is performing in the backend. Even we can also verify, but generally we collaborate with development team to run these types of tests. So in case of any unexpected issues, even developers can also assist us in fixing or finding the issues quickly. So a sudden increase of the load or decrease of the load is the actual concept of the spike testing. Okay, so we will try to run this set up these practically in our upcoming sessions. Okay, we'll also run a 1 hour load test in our session. Okay, wherein we run multiple scripts with multiple users. We run the entire load test for 1 hour, and then we'll determine whether the test is a pass or a fail, and what are the issues, how many errors are coming, what type of errors are coming, where to find the errors, how to draft the email, with all our observations and concerns. All these things we'll discuss in detail in our upcoming sessions. So from today's session, this is the only one pending. We will cover this tomorrow for sure. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, sir. In a duration test, do we define the duration, or it is always three hours, and then we have to test for 8 hours?
No, we have to define. We have to configure for how long we want to run. So basically, if you are already working in a project, if you have already, if your team already has a specific, format like 5 hours or 8 hours, they've already decided that they want to run for 5 hours or 8 hours. So you should also run for 5 hours or 8 hours. If they don't have
Okay.
anything, you are the one you should decide. You can
Hmm.
initially start with 3 hours, and if that
Okay.
is successful, then run for 5 hours or 8 hours. It's up to you. No need to
Okay.
run
That
for
is a
1 day and all.
Okay, that is a standard, but I can run for 2 hours also if I want.
Yeah, definitely. You can run for 2 hours or 4 hours also. Okay.
Okay.
So normally, what we can do, we can specifically configure to run for 3 hours or 2 hours, or there
Okay.
is one option while configuring the test to run indefinitely. That means
Hmm.
today morning you like today before logging out, you started the test, you configured it to run indefinitely. You will come tomorrow morning, it will still run.
Okay.
Okay, means
Until I stop.
until you stop. Okay,
Hmm.
so if you want to see continuously run and wait and see if some issue comes up at some point, you can configure it to run indefinitely and wait for it some patience with some patience.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, but both
Okay.
of these scenarios can be done specific time frame and in indefinitely.
Okay.
Okay, so
So,
let's go ahead.
so for spike test, how long we will do the test? For 10-15 minutes or for
Yeah,
1 hour?
like 15-30 minutes is enough, but it's just to see how the servers are responding with the sudden spike, sudden increase and sudden decrease, right? So it need not be continuously run for 1 hour. That's the reason we will collaborate with development team. We'll just schedule a call for 30 minutes, and we'll just ask them, okay, should I suddenly increase 100? Okay,
Okay.
or should I suddenly increase 200? Yeah, whatever they say, we will increase, and whenever they say, we'll decrease.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Hi,
So yeah, go ahead.
I have a doubt in course content. Will you cover load runner enterprises in this course?
Yeah, actually, Load Runner Enterprise, I will be giving you. I mean, see, enterprise in terms of executing the test. Okay, enterprise in
Okay.
terms of executing the test. Those few sessions will be recorded sessions. I'll give you recorded sessions additionally. Coming to controller, I will be taking a live session. So both are same. Only thing is LRE execution is a SaaS based online portal execution. For that, I will be giving you a recorded session. Like actually, there is a separate course that we have designed only for LRE It's not LRE execution. Once you complete this course, we added another course uh, wherein it is like for 10 or 12 sessions, wherein it is specifically targeted to make the participants practice or understand um how we start the real-time project, how we get input. I mean, what should be our day-to-day activities, how we run different types of tests and everything.
Okay.
So it's a kind of an end-to-end project thing. So those 10 or 12 sessions recorded sessions playlist, I will be giving you separately. These
Oh,
sessions like 35, 40 sessions will be live sessions separately.
okay,
Okay.
fine.
I will tell you the difference at that point of time. Yeah.
So with the 10 to 12 recorded sessions, so what and all you mentioned that you will be covering, I mean, that will be covered in that recorded session.
Yes,
Or
yes,
do you
yes. So,
have
so,
any other
so,
separate
yeah.
sessions?
Sorry,
Uh,
I missed your last statement.
Oh, sorry. I mean, do you have any other live sessions for LI? Because I have registered for that purpose only. So today I just
No. LRE live, currently we are unable to give because of some access issues. So that's the reason I will be giving you the recorded sessions for those. Actually, it is supposed to be like 2 or 3 sessions only, but we created a separate playlist and we wanted to give the end-to-end project kind of thing. So that's the reason we created a playlist for that. Otherwise, even if I take live, it will be hardly 2 sessions, 1 or 2
Okay.
sessions max. Okay, so
Okay.
I'll tell you the difference of that, and you can go through that session video, and if you have any questions, we can connect. It will be
Okay.
like just 1 hour session, right, for that. But but that playlist will be really helpful for you, I'm sure, along with these live sessions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's continue tomorrow. Tomorrow we will be discussing about what is a server, what is application server, what is web server, what is database server, what is a protocol, and what is failover testing.
Sir,
Okay.
how can I connect with you? Through
Okay. So I'll ping in the WhatsApp group after this session.
yeah,
So you can save my number. You can reach out to me whenever you have any queries.
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.